Hi, everybody. I'm Yolanda.
I'm Julie.
Here with Julie. We have been having a really, really fantastic, I think, conversation about this thing that we call in our society self-care, but really breaking it down to what is it that we mean when we talk about self-care, and it is beyond things like bubble bath and candles, and those are lovely things and good and bring joy to our lives, but also kind of the foundation of like showing up in our own lives and mattering to ourselves and kind of checking in with our own integrity and the truth of who we are and putting in limits and what's okay and what's not okay. And so that's kind of a brief overview, but the conversation was just really beautiful, and I really appreciate you bringing this topic. So if you've missed those videos, please go back and check them out. But today is
kind of the invitation.
Yeah.
Brianna West wrote an article about what self-care and what self-care isn't. And the line that I took out of the article that was most important was true self-care is building a life you don't need to take a vacation from.
Mm-hmm.
That's profound, right? Because we live our life like, oh, when this happens, I'll be able to relax.
Yeah.
So that kind of is the overarching principle of self-care for me. And then this is kind of like what the actual work is of self-care. There's a quote that I love, and it is, "Salt water is the cure for anything, sweat, tears, or the sea." And so sweat is the hard work of doing what you have to do to deal with what isn't working. And that's the part, some of that work, those are the daily decisions that we make in our life. That's the work we can do in therapy. It's really taking account of what isn't working and doing the work to change it.
And can I just say, that's so brave, like doing that, acknowledging the things that aren't working and then doing the work to make that different. It's just, I think people assume that they're kind of at rock bottom when they reach that stage, and it's like that's step one for getting up off the ground and like brushing yourself off, in my opinion. Yeah.
And you don't have to do it alone.
No, yeah. We're not meant to do it alone.
No.
Yeah.
We're meant to be connected to other people, to work together, to support each other.
Yeah. So the sweat is the work.
Mm-hmm. And then tears are the part about a lot of trauma work is grief about what should have been and wasn't, or what was and shouldn't have been. Mm-hmm. And it's really, to me, that the tears are the grief part of like dealing with really what life has turned out to be.
Mm-hmm. I have a saying that the tears are sacred.
Mm.
So many of us don't like to cry.
Everybody apologizes for it.
Yeah, and I totally get not liking to cry. I have never been able to not cry. I'm one of those people. So I leave tissue carcasses. And, around here, I have a little ritual when a tissue box is empty, I'll unfold it and kind of fold it up, and like as I'm putting it in the recycling bin, I'll thank the tissues for their service, because like we don't do grief in our society. We don't talk about it. We don't touch it with a 10-foot pole. But so much of what is like bubbling under the surface in our lives are these experiences of grief, or of the things that happened that shouldn't have, or the things that we would have loved to have happened that didn't. Mm-hmm. So another courageous step.
Yeah. And I just think that grief is unacknowledged, and I think when we pause and look at our life, there are places for everybody where there's grief.
Because we're human, yes, and it's part of the human condition. Yeah.
And then the last component of that quote is the sea. And to me, that's like acceptance. Like the sea is enduring. You can go stand on the beach and yell at the ocean and want it to do something different, and it won't. And that's the part where, we change things, we grieve things, and then eventually we come to surrender or acceptance.
Yeah. Reminds me of the Serenity Prayer.
Actually, yes.
Yeah.
That is the Serenity Prayer.
Yeah, it is. Wow. So the Serenity Prayer, bringing aspects of the Serenity Prayer to this concept of self-care.
Wow. I had not consciously done that. That's cool.
Yeah. I think that it is beautiful. A big piece of what we talk about here as a team is detachment, like this practice, a spiritual practice of detachment, and kind of working through these different steps and allowing that to also fuel this idea of self-care, right? Self-care is doing the work. Self-care is acknowledging the grief. Yeah, so beautiful.
Yeah. And then accepting and surrendering.
Yeah. Always from that place of our own integrity, our own truth, and our own agency, like reclaiming that. It's a beautiful paradox of things too, right? It's not, everything's not black or white or all this or all that. It's a combination of all of these things.
Or linear.
No, grief is not linear. So the best way for people to do this
is definitely in relationship. Working with us is one way to do it.
Yeah.
The therapists here have a lot of training in grief, a lot of training in trauma work. So landing here would be a way. Or working with another trusted person in your community, maybe a spiritual guide,
yeah.
a friend.
Yeah. And maybe kind of keeping your antenna out if you're hearing, if you're around someone who's weaponizing self-care and telling you that you're not working hard enough at, whatever, lighting the candle or scheduling the massage or whatever, pay attention to that too.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's who you let in and who might stay outside of that circle.
I really want to thank you for bringing such a really profound kind of way of talking about this thing that we hear a lot about in our society, this self-care, and what it has the possibility to look like. So
thank you
again. If this is resonating for you, it definitely is for me. Give our office a call, 813-434-3639. As Julie said, we've got a team here who can walk through the messiness with you. You're not alone. Give us a call.